Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 130. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed, talented actor and professional cosplayer, Mandy Pursley. Mandy.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going so good. Thank you for having me on today.
You're welcome. Yeah, so this is so right now you are East Coast, and you used to be in the West Coast, and now you are now getting to experience, I think you said in a previous interview, all 4 seasons now, right?
Yes.
Do you kind of still have, do you have that where you are in North Carolina?
Yeah, although actually here it doesn't get really cold. I found out there's no snow here, and I was really disappointed after living in San Diego for 8 years. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. But this is great. So you are now you've kind of gotten a lot of press on just some of your cosplay work that you've done. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about that because I have somebody that also goes to Comic Cons, and then seeing the and also just seeing the, always been just intrigued and just surprised just by looking at some of this cosplay work that I've seen in these decor is how intensive it is. And you as being probably, for anybody that's interested, please go check out Mandy's website. She does have be the spark cosplay.com, but definitely go to your facebook.com/be the spark cosplay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm most active on Facebook. I also have Instagram at Be the Spark Cosplay. But yeah, I have most of my interaction. I enjoy talking with people, and we chat cosplay and just artistry, and it's a lot of fun on there. But like you said, conventions are awesome because there's just so many people in every genre that you could imagine, and sometimes mashing up the weirdest things that you would even think of. So it's great.
Because you started doing this, as we say, pre-COVID. So what have you been doing the last couple of years? We kind of had a little break this past summer. Have you been able to go to some conventions this past this past
year I made it to Dragon Con, which was my first time going to that. I was excited that we came out on the East Coast so I could go and see what that was about. And then I also went to Gen Con, which was really fun, and that's where I was kind of helping to rep a board game tabletop game, I guess, called Cold to the Deep, that they put my face in, which is the dream, the ultimate dream is to cosplay yourself, I think. So that was very, very exciting.
Yeah, and we could pull this up. So this is you in it's a tabletop role-playing game, or is it?
Yeah, it's a tabletop role-playing game, and so that's one of the character cards that you can choose to play. So it was very cool. I was very excited.
So that's you, and this is and that's based off of your design that you made here.
Yeah, well, I kind of sketched out a couple ideas that they could possibly use for the character, and then they made the illustration. And then I actually had to go back and make the costume off of their illustration. So it was kind of a collaborative effort.
So talk to us a bit about that. So you say you probably have I don't know, exaggerate, but you have scores and scores of costumes, correct?
Yes, I have a lot of costumes. I always joked because when I was a little girl, I really enjoyed dressing up, and I wanted to learn how to sew. And I was always my dream when I grow up is to have a closet full of costumes. And so now I have walk-in closet full of costumes. Yeah, so that's just a small fraction. I just pulled those out for a photographer to see what I had. And those are just ball gowns, literally. That's not even counting the other kind of stuff. So, it's a lot. But it's fun. My dream has come true. Right.
So have you always done seamstress work? Have you always done this, or is this something this is a passion that you've kind of picked up in your adult life?
Yeah, it's definitely an adult passion. When I was younger, I really enjoyed sketching, I guess, costumes. I would take my favorite video game characters and I would draw them a new outfit to wear. And so I had notebooks and folders just full of all these costumes, but I had kind of always been intimidating about sewing. When I was younger, I didn't even try it. And it wasn't, I think I was 20, I don't know, it was in my mid 20s when my husband just brought home a sewing machine one day, and he's basically like, here, you seem like you like making things, just try it. So he taught me the basics, and then I just kind of like ran away crazy from there. Like the very first thing that I tried to make was a corset for the Renaissance Fair, which is a terrible first project. That's really hard to make a corset. So I was a little crazy, but I learned a lot. And now I just, every time I make something, I try to do something a little bit more, you know, to bring that skill up. So like with Snow White over here, I worked on a lot of hand beading that I hadn't done before. And I've got another one coming up that's kind of working on this kind of a more generic artsy Snow Queen. And that one, the skirt has literally like 8 layers to it. It's just layer upon layer upon layer of all this different tulle, which give an organza, which gives it kind of a color shifting effect, which is pretty cool. Right. So yeah, that's me tired. That's the end of the day at the convention.
So I guess for those that are that are listening right now that might be a writer or might be a designer or an artist who says, listen, I have a great character and I want to do this. I want to make a costume. I want to make a 3D version of this. I want to wear what my character made. And they're like, listen, the last time I ever picked up a sewing needle was, you know, in home economics class in high school. What would be your advice for someone who wants to start designing and making costumes?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say start out using like pre-made patterns. Like there's honestly so many great pattern companies out there. I mean, there's the big ones that you can buy from like Joann's and Hobby Lobby, like Simplicity and McCall's, but there's so many like great independent designers now too that you can find on Etsy and things like that. It helps, I think, before you start trying to go out on your own to learn the basics of how you put things together. Right. And then from there, you can start modifying patterns and then kind of figuring things out yourself.
Right. And what type of medium would you recommend first as kind of a, a costume design 101 type?
Yeah. As far as like fabrics or
fabrics.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I am a lover of fabrics. Like a lot of people maybe want to start out on cheaper fabrics, which is fine. But honestly, you get the perfect fabric and it really makes the dress, I have to say. Anything simple though, like simple cottons or satins are pretty easy to work with. And then you can kind of build up your skill level from there.
Yeah. And do you work within other mediums or materials as well? Like say like leather or any of that?
I've done some leather work on my steampunk bell. That one had some like suede and leather, and then actually I made a book holster for her because I felt like Belle, you know, like has that steampunk Western vibe with the steampunk, and so that book holster for her is actually real leather. That was kind of one of my first leather making projects. And then when I did the sorceress for the Cult of the Deep that we were looking at earlier, I actually have the arm here. So I learned a lot with this. So this is actually made out of Warbler primarily, and the hand lights up, which is pretty cool. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So we put some electronic LEDs in there, and like the base is bendable. And I'd never tried to use Warbler before, so it was definitely an experience. And Warbler is very cool. It's like a thermoplastic. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome material. It comes in like these thin plastic sheets. And when you heat it up, it becomes like completely moldable. And then whatever shape it's in, when it cools back down, it stays in it. So like this whole hand started out as just like a solid plastic sheet and molding it around. So that was pretty cool. And then we used a clear resin here to make the piece that actually attaches to one of my prosthetic pieces to hold it on together. Oh, wow. So yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's my magic arm.
So talk to us a bit about that. So like my other question for you is, do you design, because as you said, you got a closet, a walk-in closet full of the, how does that work? How does that work for you? Where do are you sitting there watching TV at night, maybe, and just kind of like having a sketchbook and you just kind of doodling a bit and say, hey, I'm going to make this? Or do you see something on screen, for instance, like as an example, like Cinderella obviously is an obvious example, but do you see something on screen, whether it be and say, I want to design that outfit, but kind of do it in my own way? How does that work? Do you design something first and find a place for it, or do you find an inspiration and then design it?
I usually kind of have an inspiration, like a character that I want to create, and then I'll kind of start sketching out ideas. And I may go through kind of several iterations or playing around with different colors. I'm a little different than a lot of cosplayers, because a lot of cosplayers really focus on being completely screen accurate. Like it is. And I mean, that's great. I think that's awesome when people are able to replicate some of these costumes. I like to put a little bit of my own spin on most of what I do. As you can see, like these isn't straight Cinderella or straight Snow White, as you would see. I like to put a little bit of a historical spin on a lot of things, but I'm not completely like historically accurate. I kind of put my own thing on it too. But I'll sketch down and I'll sketch out some ideas until I feel like it's something I really like. And then I'll start making it. And then half the time I'll kind of change it as I'm going through making it and being like, oh, I think this would work better if we did it a little bit different. So it always ends up a little bit different from what I had planned originally. But yeah, a lot of times I'll see characters that I identify with, I guess, in some way. Right. And recently I've been more into kind of exploring how I can make those characters my own. Because I am an arm amputee. And one thing when I was younger is like I never had characters that I felt represented me. And so like with Cinderella and her glass arm, I was like, this is awesome because I can put myself into this story and be the character that I wanted to see on the screen. And it's like, if you don't see it, that's fine. You make your own. And so that's been good.
So is there something along the designs that you have as an artist and a creator that you're doing that is you're starting to see as almost kind of a trademark, whether it's like a type of material or a design or there's something that on there that you seem to gravitate towards too as you're sketching out, whether it be do you see that we're doing this enough that you're starting to see that this is kind of a Pursley-esque, I don't know if I made that word, like a design to it?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of corsets and ball gowns. That's just what I love. Like I said, when I was a little girl, I would have dreams of just wanted ball gowns. I just want to dress like that all the time. And so most of my outfits that I make have a lot of corsets. Sometimes like the ones that you were showing there, I did some characters from Critical Role when we went to Dragon Con. But that was mostly because my friend wanted to do Critical Role. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do that too, even if it's not a ball gown. It'll be okay today. But yeah, a lot of mine have a similar silhouette though, I think, with the corsets and then the big poofy dress with the hoop skirts underneath. So what I'm a little extra.
Yeah. do you sit down? So do you have like are there designs and are there designs and costumes that you've made that you just haven't been able to bring out yet because of COVID? You haven't been able to show that you're kind of chomping at the bit to say, I can't wait for the next convention because I want to go as this or that?
Yeah, I don't think I have any big ones that I haven't really worn anywhere. Because like I said, I got to go to Dragon Con and Gen Con this year, so that was fun. I'm working on this Snow Queen, so hopefully that will be done in the next month or two before it's not winter, and then it won't fit. So I'm like, I gotta get going. I gotta get it done. I've only got a few months. And that one was funny because it wasn't really meant to be like a character cosplay. And then one of my people that follow my page was like, oh, that looks like Queen Frostine from Candyland. And I'm like,
oh, really?
Oh, it does. Okay. I guess it just is Queen Frostine now. So, I don't know how many Candyland cosplayers there are, but
right. Do you like, that's another question. do you have like an idea book where you find something really obscure, like an obscure design from a you know a forgotten about or yet to be discovered IP that you say, oh, I want to make this. This looks fun. Or do you like to gravitate towards, some of the more recognizable designs?
I kind of mix and match. Like there's a Queen of Hearts design that I found by a Japanese artist, and it's just like so over the top. It's absolutely ridiculous. And
Right.
probably most people would have no idea who it is, but that's on my like cosplay dream list. But I enjoy going to conventions and being kind of recognizable. Because people appreciate your work no matter what.
Right.
But at conventions, if people see a character that they love too, then they're like, Cinderella! And it's very exciting. So instead of, I don't know what you are, but you look cool. So I try to make them semi-recognizable, even with my own spin on it.
Right. And so with your Be the Spark cosplay, what's your as your website and your Facebook page, what do you see as part of your the audience that kind of gravitate towards your cosplay work?
Well, I think my cosplay is a little bit unique. I have a large following with people who are also in the disability community because there aren't a whole lot of cosplayers who have disabilities. And so I think they think that's cool to kind of have someone that they can look up to not that you need to have to look up to me, but a person that's in the public eye that, is just owning who they are.
Right.
And then also I try to have like a positive, friendly community. And so I think people enjoy just kind of interacting with someone who does this. I don't know. I have very cool people who follow me, and I'm like, I still feel weird because I'm nobody. I don't know why anyone cares, but it's very sweet that they do. It's very humbling.
Well, because your costumes are gorgeous. I mean, obviously it's that you can tell there's a lot of, time and energy put into it. And there's a lot of heart put into it.
Yes.
And I think it just as, artists kind of gravitate towards what's, the beauty of the beauty and the and the sweat that you've put into that, put into your work. Do you feel, with that said, where do you see the direction of cosplay going, especially now with with the pandemic, as we're kind of, knock on wood, things are changing. Things are going to invariably change. Yeah. But where do you see the future of cosplay in the next few years?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we can get back to conventions and get back to normal in the next couple years. But I feel like a lot of cosplayers have really adapted well to the pandemic. I've seen a lot more like photo shoots and things online where people, they didn't get to wear it to a convention, but they can still share their arts with everybody else, through photographs, which is very cool. And I also thought it was funny as this was the one you have now is from Dragon Con. And like we had to wear masks at Dragon Con. And I thought it was so cool that most cosplayers really went out of their way to make their mask match their costume. Like you can't just show up as Belle and not have a gold mask. Like that's bananas.
Right.
So I thought that was cool. Like I kind of expected that cosplayers would do that because that's just who we are. But I was excited to see it.
And so talking a bit about bring us back a bit to the Cult of the Deep. How did that conversation happen?
Yeah, well, it was kind of unexpected on my end. So Sam Stockton, who is one of the founders of BA Games, he messaged me. It was probably about a year and a half ago at first. It was after the Cinderella costume had kind of gone viral because everyone was like, what? Cinderella with a glass arm? Like, it just blew their minds, I guess. And so Sam messaged me, and he's just basically like, hey, I saw your Cinderella thing. And he was like, I kind of had my own dreams that I'd been putting off for a while about making this game. And he's like, I don't know why. I just saw your Cinderella. And I was like, wow, she just went out and made that costume. I'm gonna go out and make a board game. I'm paraphrasing, but basically. And so he asked if they could include my likeness in their game as one of the characters. And I was like, that sounds amazing. That sounds so cool. And so they put my character in there as the sorceress. And I loved that they gave her this like really cool magical prosthetic arm. I thought that was awesome. Right. And then I was extra excited because so he doesn't know, well, he didn't know at the time that I really enjoy playing D&D. And one of my primary characters is really, I just fireball everything. Like, doesn't matter, just fireball it all. And so when they were making this character, her special ability is actually just fireballing everyone. And I was like, yes, I was so excited. You wouldn't even believe, like, I got to play virtually for the first time at Gen Con last year, back in 2020, because everything got canceled. And so I saw her special ability like live playing with everyone at Gen Con, and I probably screamed a little bit. I was so excited. I was like, fireball! Yes! So it was great. And then so like the game is like, it's been produced. It's still waiting to ship out right now because, well, I guess it's shipped. It's just in a boat somewhere.
It's in a boat someplace.
So hopefully it'll be here soon. But they have like copies that people can play at Gen Con. And so that was very cool to get to go and like just hang out at their booth in costume and be like, it's me. Look. Like dream come true. It really was.
Right. So getting back to some questions about, for folks that are interested in learning more about that. So you're connected to the, obviously like the cosplay scene as well as, so say for instance, kind of very similar to that example of Cult of the Deep. Now, if there was a game designer, if there is a comic book artist or an author, a fantasy author who says, listen, I want to make this as I have a design of, my main character. At what point is there as cosplayers, cosplayers as a business? It's like, is it possible for people that own IPs to reach out to cosplayers and say, hey, can I hire you to design this costume or can I hire you to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that never hurts to ask and reach out and see what you can work out with people. There's so many really talented cosplayers out there too. And a lot of people do take commissions or would be like, I think, really happy to work with a company. So that would, yeah, definitely.
And so is there resources for cosplayers who were looking for commissions or artists who are looking to hire cosplayers? Is there a good resource that, because there's never a point to like give out an actual price here to, but is there any good resources that you would recommend cosplayers who are looking to start and sending out commissions, or people who are looking for cosplayers to hire to do commissions? Is there a good resource that they could look at?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure. I don't actually know of like a central place where all of this happens. Right. A lot of what I've seen cosplayers working with companies has been very kind of word of mouth, like meeting up at conventions, or because I mean, honestly, like I would say some of the like tabletop video game genres have been more jumping on this bandwagon of hiring cosplayers to kind of promote their stuff. But I think that would be great if other, like you said, comic book artists, authors, that kind of thing were interested. I think it's great. Like when I went and repped for Cult of the Deep, like a lot of people were really interested to come over and see someone in costume. They thought that was very cool. So it was definitely a draw. And then, obviously come play the game too. But not just look at me. But yeah, so I think that's cool, especially for a lot of conventions and things. Yeah, it can really pull people in.
Right, especially because I've seen we've been to those conventions where you've seen we've been to those conventions where we've seen authors kind of have to create their own costume that they want to use to promote, and it's never as good as if like they actually reached out to a professional cosplayer and say, here's the picture, can you make this for me, and can you wear, and can I hire you to do that? So it's there seems to be a natural cross-pollination that should be happening.
Mhm.
And could be happening more.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, someone needs to make that. So whoever's listening, like, please go make a resource for this to happen. I don't know enough. Obviously, my website's still been in development for like 5 years. So not me, but somebody else.
Yeah. And Bethany Stahl, one of our previous guests, who's an award-winning children's book author. Jesus, I love the idea of authors and cosplayers teaming up. So
yes,
yeah.
I do too. I think that's fun. And it's really cool to be able to like bring these characters to life. I'm sure, especially if you're an author, because it's not like the movies where, you know, there is a person in a costume playing your characters. Like you're writing a book and you're like,
Right.
to see it come into the real world is very cool. I know even for me, like I've done one book character as a cosplay. I did Tanel Ka, which is a character from the Star Wars Young Jedi Knight series that was like, I don't know, I think back in the 90s. Like I read it when I was in like middle school. But they had a character in there that was really meaningful to me. Tanel Ka, she was a Jedi and like a princess. But she was like, yeah, there she is. But she was like very like tough, and she ended up losing her arm in a lightsaber accident. But she was like, whatever, I'm still the most kick butt person on this team. But I love that because I had never who was like, I'm just awesome and going on about my life. And so like, I didn't even get to cosplayer until, you know, 15 years after I read the book, but it was empowering to me. I was like, this is cool to step in this character's shoes and like, I don't know, just bring her to life in a way that not very many people had. So it's cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've talked to comic writers on the show before, and they've always said, listen, if you're a writer and you don't know how to draw, hire someone to do the art for you. And the same goes is like, if you're going to a convention and you want to have, you know, you want to have the character there too.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to make a costume, have someone professionally make it for you.
Yes. Well, it makes a big impact, I think, if you, because like your skill set is writing, and that is awesome, like better than I could do. But you have someone in like a really professionally well-made costume, like people want to come see that, and it's very cool.
Right.
So,
yeah, absolutely. And like as you said, do you see so that would be like kind of like a dream of maybe just trying to, as we were saying, getting these two parts of the conventions to you know, to work well, because we see some people who make great, as you say, like, you know, mainstream character costumes who are like Hollywood level design, and it's you look at like, where did you come up with these things? And like it's amazing, like your stuff. I mean, looking at especially some of your steampunk inspired work is like, it makes me want to ask you this question is like, do you see the world differently now? Like, do you walk down the street and do you see found objects in a whole new light? Do you like, oh, I could, or going to a hardware store or a craft store, like, I could use this for that. How much being a cosplayer changed your view of?
Well, especially like I go to a fabric store and I'm just overwhelmed because like every fabric, I'm like, oh, I can make this character and this character and this character. And then I buy too much fabric. And then I'm like, oh, I don't have time to make all this. So it's a problem. Like when we moved from California over here to North Carolina, I sold like 150 like bolts of fabric. Like I had so much. It was ridiculous. I was like, they're going to charge me so much to move all this. Like, it has to go away. But yeah, you definitely do. You see things and you're like, oh. And I notice costumes on TV in the movies more. Like before, you're just like, oh, cool, that's a costume. But now you're like, oh, I see what that embroidery. That's amazing. Like, look at that cape. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, I was watching. I actually got to see some of the costumes up close too from Black Panther, and cool. You can't even really see it on screen, but it's like the beadwork. There's like thousands of tiny beads like sewn into some of the costumes, and you're just like, I can't believe they spent that much time. and you only see it for like a flash of a second, but it's amazing. And it really makes all the difference, because like you said, with, someone just kind of, making a costume for a booth that doesn't really know what they're doing. Like
Right.
you think, why would you put 5,000 beads on this shirt? And then you're like, oh, but it makes it look good. Even if it's only a flash, like you're like, wow, that's impressive. So.
And so what have other than, of course, your masthead Cinderella costume that you've been on national television with, you've been all over the place with that. What are some of the other costumes that you've created that you just had some of that very personal pride on, that you just, when people, oh, cool costume, can I take a picture? And you're just great, like, you have no idea how long it took me to make this.
Well, it's funny because even with Cinderella, some people are like, oh, do you do birthday parties and that? And I'm like, no. I'm not going anywhere near children and cake in this dress. There's like $500 worth of fabric on there. So, I'm bad about that. I would wear it around children, but not children and cake. Like those two things are not happening.
I wear it around cake, but not children. I wear it around children, but not cake, but not both at the same time.
You can't put them together. Like it's just not gonna happen. I have a child. I know how this is gonna go down. So yeah, well, I was talking to my Snow White over here. That was one of my like proudest things, because I learned a lot. It was the first time I'd done a lot of like hand beading. And so this entire front part in the center actually has like, I think it was like 900 gold beads on it. Wow. They're just tiny, tiny little seed beads everywhere. And then the skirt had, I think it was about 1,000 pearls that I hand sewed on. It was kind of a diamond pattern. And so like it all these pearls, and like I've done about half of them, and I'm like, what am I doing, wasting my life putting all these pearls on this dress? But it turned out good. Yeah. And then the funny thing is, I see things that other people wouldn't ever notice. Like, so I finished that skirt that had all the pearls, and I was like, I'm gonna take a picture, selfie. And I took the selfie and I was about to post it. I'm like, there's a pearl missing in this one tiny corner. And everyone else is like, I don't see it. And I'm like, it's right there. It's driving me crazy. And then the collar on Snow White, I had to draft that pattern completely from scratch. And I don't even know, I probably made like 10 different patterns trying to get it to look the way I wanted it. But I'm very stubborn. That's actually the secret to being a good cosplayer or seamstress, is just be stubborn enough to redo it 20 times. Like keep doing it till you get it right, and that's how you learn.
And so, other than the fabric piece, what kind of innovative materials that you've been able to incorporate in some of your costumes that other cosplayers have noticed and kind of given you kind of an applause to?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I've had anything like insanely innovative that other cosplayers don't use. I do a lot of fabric work. Right. My glass arm here, I didn't make this myself, but it's very cool. I'll show you guys. So this was made out of resin. So, but this was made by an artist, Gilbert Lozano. He's done stuff for like Disneyland and Universal Studios before. He's very like awesome. And so he made that for me. So everyone's like, that's so cool, because you don't see many glass hands running around, so that's special. And then I did a lot of kind of found objects with the steampunk as well, because that's a little bit more of an eclectic vibe, and it's more into all the little details. So with that one, I made the book holster, which was very cool. And then I had like, there's even like a little pendant on the side that has like a rose in a little vial, and you can't even see it, but like I know that it's there.
Is there any designs that you're looking for? Have you done anything? I couldn't find anything on your pictures of all specifically about like any like science fiction-y kind of things or any futuristic work?
Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot. Like I said, I did Tanelka from Star Wars. I do tend to veer into the kind of fantasy and princess world, but I'd like to do some more sci-fi. So I love Star Wars. I'm such a Star Wars nerd. So I'd like to do some more in that realm.
And Star Wars doesn't have like a name for it. They're not called, like Trekkies got Star Trek's got Trek. Yeah, it's just Star Wars.
We're just Star Wars.
which is more fantasy than sci-fi. A lot of people.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, I would say Star Trek is definitely more the like techie kind of sci-fi. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just more of a fantasy person. I don't
know. Yeah. Yeah. Bethany just said that fantasy and princesses are the best. So
they are. Yes. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to dress up like a princess? I mean, really, like, and it's the biggest ego boost in the entire world when you're at a convention and a child is just like, oh my gosh, you're a princess. It's the best. Like I dressed up as Elsa one year, like when Frozen had just come out, and this one girl like literally about died, like trying to run across the street, just yelling Elsa. And I'm like, I'll be here when you come across. Don't die, please. It's great. The kids are so excited, and they think like you are the legit princess, which is amazing. Like they'll be telling you all about the last time they saw you at Disney World and what you talked about, and you're just like, yeah. I totally remember that.
It's like it's basically the equivalent of like what the guy with the white beard gets when he dresses up as Santa Claus is basically.
Yeah. You're just like, you are Santa now. That's fine. But it's great. Well, that's what got me into cosplay was like one Halloween when my daughter was like, I think she was 2 or 3. It was like the first Halloween that she got to pick what she wanted, and she wanted to be Belle from Beauty and the Beast. And I made her little dress, and I was like, well, I want a princess dress. I want to make this too. So I made myself this big giant ball gown that I literally just wore around our neighborhood, going trick-or-treating like a crazy person. But the kids were like, oh my gosh, there's a princess in this neighborhood. It's crazy. And I was like, wow, I like this. I want to do this more often. And I just kept making princess dresses. So, you know.
Right. So have you been able to make pretty much the whole gamut of princesses, or is there still one that you're? It's like every new year there's a new princess movie that comes out.
I know, they keep coming out with more. There's still more I want to do. I really want to do an Anna from Frozen. I love her big like coronation dress and some of those. Actually, I could use the glass arm too, because like at the end where she gets like frozen, I could just be like, oh, there it is. I don't know.
Right in the first movie, yeah.
I'll just reutilize those. But yeah, so I've done Cinderella and Snow White. I've done 2 versions of Belle now. She's kind of my favorite. And I have a 3rd version I want to do at some point. Like I really want to do like a warrior version of Belle where she's like wearing armor and she's got like a sword and like a stained glass shield or something. I think that would be so cool. Yeah.
So from there, like, I'm just curious, is like the more you get, do you have to get, I've like I say, for me, I'm super curious about, because I love the cosplay culture. It's so fun just watching people, like, I'm amazed. How much have you kind of taken over the house with like you start off as a workshop, kind of like, I'm just visualizing, do you have to have more than one sewing machine at this point, or do you have to have like more like fabric cutters, and do you have like leather punching things now, like grommet making things?
I've like taken over half the house. It's so bad. Like when I started, it was like, the spare bedroom, and now I have the spare bedroom and like what's supposed to be our dining room here is just my sewing room. But yeah, I have 2 sewing machines and 2 sergers that I use regularly. And then, I have leather making tools and jewelry tools and like every kind of fabric nonsense that you could ever imagine, grommet punchers and all this kind of stuff. It's a very expensive hobby to get into. And then I got into Warbler, so then I'm like, I need like heat guns and all these like cutters and everything. So
I was going to ask you, do you have a forge? Do you have to pretty much get all of a sudden like an anvil and a forge? Is that like the next step?
That's the next. Well, I was like making some of this stuff for the sorceress, and she's got like some jewelry pieces, and I was like, I'd really like to smelt some metal. Like that would be cool. And my husband's just like, I think you've got enough toys. Like I could afford and kill them out there.
Like a spot welder, you just come out of the garage with like the welding helmet on.
I would probably do that because I'm always out in the garage using his tools too. I'm like, I don't really know what this does, but I think I can drill a hole with this. It's fine. See what happens.
And so how often does it take you to make, I mean, obviously it depends on the details, but on like average, say for instance, with a convention season coming up,
Yeah.
because it's how much do you have to plan in advance to start making your creations? Is it a couple months, a month, or how does that process work for you?
Well, I'm kind of slow in sewing because I work and I have a child
Yeah.
and I volunteer a lot and my husband's in the military, so he's gone a lot. So my plate is very full. So
Right.
I probably put in usually between like 40 to 80 hours of work time into most of my costumes. So if I'm in a crunch, I can get that done pretty quick, but it usually takes me a couple of months at least to get in a costume. Now I did like when I made the Cinderella, we were planning on originally entering that into the masquerade contest at the San Diego Comic Con back in 2019, and I got sick
Right.
backstage and like literally passed out backstage 20 minutes before we were supposed to go on, so I didn't get to perform. But I busted out Cinderella and a peasant dress and Prince Charming and a fairy godmother and two stepsisters in like 6 months, which
Wow.
was probably the record for me. That was a lot. So.
With your costumes and stuff like that, do you then at what point um, do you cannibalize them all to work on new ones, or once it's done you're like, I'm not touching that anymore? Or is it like an artist where that painting was good but I need the canvas, and
Oh
then they kind of
no,
left over?
these are like my children. Like, people have even asked if they can like borrow or rent things, and I'm like not these. No, nobody touches these. This is my child. So no, I would never ever rip it apart. I couldn't do that. Like, I don't know. So because you put 80 hours into a dress, and it's like, man, you don't, it's special. You don't want to redo it.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Right. And so when you sit down and make your design, I'm also kind of curious of, as you said, you saying earlier, if you're really interested in kind of starting doing this, get one of those McCalls or something, a print. But say for instance,
Yeah.
as you're saying, like when you design it, do you first kind of fashion design it where you kind of like draw it everything out, and then next step, do you then have to blueprint it out in a way where you have to kind of pull out what each piece looks like, measure it all? How does that work?
Kind of, yeah. So
Yeah.
I usually start out by sketching the silhouette and kind of what I'm looking for. And
Okay.
then sometimes I still use patterns, or I'll use pieces of patterns to, I don't know, to make my life easier, especially if
Right.
I'm in a time crunch and you're like, because it's way easier to just use somebody else's patterns and have to completely pattern this out yourself.
Right.
But if you have a mannequin, they're actually pretty easy to use because you can kind of drape the fabric
Oh, okay.
pieces on the mannequin. And so I don't use the good material at first. Use the cheap stuff because then you can cut it up, or if you're like, that didn't work right, you can, reconfigure how you're going to want to do things. Corsets are easy because they are pretty much on the body as they are. So you just put your pieces on there and call it a day. And then I love big ball gown skirts because they're just like, you can literally just use giant rectangles of fabric and just gather it all together. Like that Cinderella skirt and Snow White skirt both had so each layer was, I think, about 6 yards of fabric, and there's 3 layers on that one, and Snow White's had 2 layers. So
Right.
so just throw tons of fabric in there and call it a day. But yeah. But yeah, if you have a mannequin, and you can actually do it on yourself too. I've seen a lot of people who they make duct tape dummies. So you can actually literally like saran wrap yourself first, and then you put the duct tape on top of it. And when you cut it off, it's your shape that
Oh,
you can
wow.
then build more stuff off of, or you can even cut the duct tape up and that, if you want, in certain shapes, and that can be your fabric pattern. So it was
Oh,
pretty cool.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so from there, and then you kind of, as you say, you kind of then have your pattern developed, and then
Mm-hmm.
from there you start. And do you already have colors in mind, or have you been in a position where like halfway through you're like, do you have any happy accidents where you're like, wow, this red actually looks a little bit better than the yellow I was planning on, or something like that?
Yeah, well, actually, with the Snow White skirt, I wasn't sure which fabric I was going to use for her train. Like, I actually had like 3 different reds, and the one I was planning to use originally had like some gold accents on it. And
Right.
I don't know why I was like, that's too much. It needs to be simple and a big trim. So yeah, I do that a lot, but I usually kind of have an idea where I'm going to go, especially because right now we live kind of in the middle of nowhere. So there's actually no fabric stores near us. So I have to order almost everything online. So you kind of have to know what you're going into if you're going to order lots of fabric. So, because fabric's not cheap. This is an expensive hobby.
Right. Yeah. So if someone's looking at it on the like on some more inexpensive stuff, is there any recommendations of maybe going to secondhand stores? Do cosplayers or people actually go to some secondhand stores and find old outfits and then utilize that fabric? Would that be better than, as you say, maybe buying remnants online or anything? Or
Yeah, if you're on a budget and you need a lot of fabric, yeah, I've heard totally a lot of people will go to thrift stores and they'll just kind of repurpose things. Some people are like amazing at like taking bed sheets or curtains and just turning it into an amazing dress, like probably better than I would do. I'm like, wow, you made that out of a curtain. It's like that movie Enchanted where she takes down the curtains and she's like, oh, I made a gown. So, and yeah, you can find a lot of times if you have a fabric store near you, like things are on clearance that you can get for a pretty good price. And yeah, so there's a lot you would need to on a budget.
right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. So we're already knocking at the top of the hour, Mandy.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow, this went by so fast. That's crazy.
So if people are interested in following you and learning more about all your work and what you do, where would be the best place that they could go to?
Yeah, Facebook is probably the best. If you go to facebook.com/BeTheSparkCosplay, that's where we have the most interactions with the community, and you can kind of see what I'm up to. So yeah, definitely head over there. I'm also on Instagram at @BeTheSparkCosplay, and one day I'll have a website. So
it's here. You got it.
It's there. I've got there's something.
You got the domain. Yeah.
I know. Well, that was the biggest challenge because like all this stuff blew up all of a sudden. And I was even trying to come up with a name because I was just some regular, crazy person dressing up like a princess. And then like the Cinderella went viral, and literally overnight I had like thousands of friend requests and from strangers. And I'm like, I don't know. I got to come up with something now.
Yeah, so Bethany does say she needs a warrior belle in her life. That sounds amazing. So
yeah, I know. That's like one of my next projects I got to work on. I love Belle. She's one of my favorites.
Great. So thanks a lot, Mandy. And maybe we can have you back on later if you have any more new designs and new things, and maybe we'll talk about the convention season coming up. So
yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see where we're going this year for convention. So already kind of in the talks to go to Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, which I haven't been to. So I'm excited about that. And then we'll see where else we end up.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Mandy. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it was so good talking to you too. Thank you.
All right. That's your are those some of your latest creations you have behind you, or?
Yeah, well, this is Cinderella. This is the one that kind of went viral about 2 years ago. And then Snow White here is one of my more recent ones.
Okay. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter. And I got a 16-month-old boy who just is now deciding to jump off couches, much to the chagrin of my wife. But it's so funny. I told my daughter, my 7-year-old just loves princesses. My 5-year-old loves Spider-Man. You know what? That's fine. You know what? She wants to love Spider-Man. That's
my daughter. Like I dress up like princesses, and my 10-year-old hates princesses. Like will not dress up like one. So I understand that.
I told my daughter, I was like, I'm interviewing a princess tonight. So
yeah.
Like,
I should have put on the gown so she would believe it.